Top lane is the most snowbally role in the entire game, and because of this, the first 5 minutes of your top lane gameplay are going to be the most important. This can make or break your game. Today, we're going to be going over all the things that you need to know and do in the first 5 minutes to ensure your best chance at winning the lane phase and transitioning that winning lane into a winning game. If after watching this video you decide that you want more high quality guides just like this one, or some champion specific guides, then make sure to check out our website, GameLeap.com. There we've got hundreds of guides, all done by challenger players, sorted into a quick and easy to use courses system. So make sure to check that out using the link in the description below. Now, starting off right away, before you even get into the game, you're going to want to identify your matchup. This is the most important thing in the first 5 minutes because it's going to dictate what you want to do in the laning phase with the wave, and it's going to dictate whether or not you're going to be able to get a kill or if you're just playing to survive. When identifying your matchup, you want to know who wins at levels 1 through 3. In many matchups, it's actually going to vary. You might win at levels 1 and 2, but the enemy might win at level 3, and this is also something that you need to take into account, but we'll go over that a little bit later. By the time you're walking to your lane, you want to have determined who wins at levels 1 through 3, and if you're not sure, you need to play a little bit reserved. The next thing that you want to take into account is where the jungler starts for each team. If one of the junglers starts top lane, it means that their top laner is not going to be able to get priority on their first wave. This is because in the first 5 minutes, leashing the jungler as a top laner is the most punishable thing in the entire game. It's not up to you as a top laner, this is your jungler's decision, and you're kind of forced to give the leash. So if they start top lane, it's not up to you whether or not you get to play your lane. It's only up to the enemy top laner whether or not they decide to punish you for that leash. In fact, if you are playing a champion that is strong enough at level 1, if the enemy top laner leashes, you can straight up end the lane solely off of that. Now again, this does require a champion that is extremely strong at level 1, but if you're playing something like Camille, Jax, Darius, Olaf, or Trundle, what you can do is sit in the Tribrush or the river and wait to see if they come through Tribrush from red buff or through river from blue buff. If they do, you just take your level 1 ability and kill them with it. So what if you find yourself on the opposite side of this scenario? You're playing against a Darius, a Camille, Jax, something that's very strong at level 1 and could potentially kill you at level 1, and you need to leash. What do you do in this scenario? Well, in this case, you need to give a shorter leash and you have to go the long way around. It's the only option that you have. Your jungler might be a little bit dissatisfied with you, but it is better to give a shorter leash to the jungle and salvage your lane than to give a long leash to your jungle and not even have the opportunity to play your lane. It is never the right decision to go for a long leash and just hope that the Darius isn't sitting in Tribrush waiting for you to path towards your top side. Now, if you are playing one of these top laners with kill pressure at level 1, like for example Darius, then instead of just walking to the lane and auto-pathing to the lane in every single one of your games, instead what you're going to want to do is invade the enemy Tribrush or river. Now the key here is you don't want to go too early, because if you do, the enemy might still be in that brush from a classic 5-point start, and then you'll scare them away. They won't end up pathing through that brush after they leash. You want to go about 5 seconds before their first buff spawns. That way you know they won't be in that brush anymore if they are leashing, and if they're not leashing, you can go for a short trade if they do happen to be in that brush. Make sure that you're using tab to get that timer on that first buff. That way you don't have to memorize any weird numbers. The other portion to this is you don't want to overcommit at level 1. If the enemy top laner is not pathing through this brush, then you just need to go back to your lane. It's not worth missing minions on the off chance that they overleashed. They're going to miss minions if they leash too long, so they're going to be inherently behind anyways. Make sure you get back to the wave so you can still CS those minions. If they don't come through the try, they don't come through try. That's okay. This is a very, very, very important aspect to top lane that I don't see very many top laners abusing at all. Even in high diamond, this is part of the laning phase. It's something that should be abused in as many games as possible. You don't just want to auto pass to your lane because you're going to be missing out on this huge advantage. If the enemy top laner is forced to leash, make sure that they suffer for it. Now, what you do next is going to be dependent on who wins levels 2 and 3. There is a huge mistake that I see a lot of top laners make, in which they don't take into account who wins at level 3. Remember that levels 2 and 3 are very close together. They're only a few minions apart. So if you don't take into account the level 3, which is going to happen very shortly after level 2, then you might put yourself in a very bad lane state that you're going to be stuck trying to get yourself out of for the next few minutes. You want to make sure that you identify who wins level 2 and level 3 before you make your next move. So there are a few possibilities. You could lose levels 1, 2, and 3, in which case you are just forced to play a passive lane. You can't gain control of the lane, and you're just going to have to let them do what they're going to do with the lane until you get more levels and you can scale into a safer point in the lane. This kind of sucks. If you get stuck in one of these drafts, usually I would recommend dodging. I typically don't try to play any matchups where you lose levels 1, 2, and 3 because it's just such a bad scenario for you. There are some champions where this is just the case for the vast majority of their lanes, and then they scale into an absolute monster, which makes up for it by level 9 and an item or 2. Usually, this is going to be champions like Vladimir, Nasus, and Kayle. These champions aren't the best in top lane simply because it is such a snowbally lane. You kind of have to play very reserved and give up a lot of resources in order to go even later on into the game. This means that there's a lot of picks that are just better than them because they can bully early on into the game and still be just as effective later on. Now, the next possibility is that you lose level 1, but you win level 2 and level 3. If this is the case, then you're not going to be able to gain control of the wave at level 1 because you don't win at level 1, meaning you can't shove for level 2. This means that the enemy laner is probably going to beat you to level 2, which is completely okay. Your goal is not to fight them at level 2 in this scenario. You see, in this scenario, since you don't have wave control at level 1, for your level 2, you need to fight for the wave control. You want to get the wave into a state where you are the one determining what it is doing. In these scenarios, I love to start a freeze very close to my tower. I won't fight them level 2 because even if I do get a kill at level 2, they're just going to teleport back, and then I'm going to be forced to base and teleport back as well. They're going to be given an opportunity to break my freeze, and that's actually going to give them more than if I just freeze on them for 2 or 3 minutes. Remember, if you win levels 2 and 3, there really isn't much the enemy top laner can do, especially if the wave is freezing towards you. All you have to do is make sure you maintain that freeze, don't let it crash into your tower, don't accidentally break it by hitting minions too much, and zone the enemy top laner from waves. Once they get high enough level, then you can look for a kill with a massive gold lead that you have built, because this is going to be when the death timers are long enough that this kill is actually going to be punishable. Remember, with top lane, early kills really are not punishable because teleport exists and the death timer is not that long. They're really not going to miss anything for dying pre-level 3, so you shouldn't commit too much for kills pre-level 3. It's much more important to manage the wave and use lane mechanics to deny CS. The next important lane that we need to understand is lanes where you win level 1 and 2 but lose at level 3. There's a very simple solution that will allow you to get further on into the laning phase, which will allow you more of an opportunity to play the lane phase. Typically, this is a matchup where one of the champions has a 1-point wonder kind of ability, where as soon as they get that ability, it gives them a ton, but putting extra points in that ability won't really give them much. A good example of this ability would be like Renekton's W or Garen's W. These are abilities that when you get the ability, it gives you a lot, but putting additional points in that ability is only going to give you like 10 damage on Renekton's W, or a little bit of CDR and some more damage reduction on Garen's W. They really don't give you all that much, so you're allowed to scale and do a lot more against those champions by getting more levels yourself. One of my favorite examples of a matchup where you win levels 1 and 2, but lose at level 3, but later outscale, is the Jax into Kennen matchup. In this matchup, you're able to beat Kennen at levels 1 and 2 by taking Q first and then E level 2. You use this advantage at level 1 and 2 to shove the wave into them hard. Basically, you're going to trade whenever you're allowed to, but if not, you're just going to hit minions. Your primary goal is to crash the first 2 waves into the enemy tower, which will then bounce the wave back to you, creating a freeze for you, putting the wave in a safe spot so that you are not at threat of being ganked or being ran down the lane by Kennen. Notice in these examples, I am never going for a kill in the first 5 minutes of the game. My only goal is to set up beneficial waves for myself to give me a winning lane. If a kill presents itself, of course I'm going to gobble that kill up, but a lot of the times in most of your games, it's not going to present itself in the first 5 minutes, so instead you want to focus on minions. Top lane revolves around minions, and if you can control what the minions do, you can completely control the laning phase. Now, the final lane that you're going to see quite frequently is what's called a dominant lane. This is something that is going to win lane at levels 1, 2, and 3, and most likely is going to snowball their way into a dominant level 6. It's going to be stuff like Pantheon, Renekton, and Kled. These champions excel at diving level 3, so they have a very unique way that they want to play the lane. Now, this is going to be the hardest wave to play, because you need to focus on a lot of things to make sure that you get the most of it. You need to be trading properly with the enemy champion without pushing the wave too quickly. You also can't allow the enemy to freeze the lane, otherwise it's going to ruin your chances at a good dive. Finally, you need to make sure that you have enough HP to actually successfully dive and survive, and you need to make sure that your cooldowns are off cooldown, obviously, otherwise you won't be able to pull the dive off. This is to ensure that the enemy dives under their tower and misses as much EXP as possible. So, understanding all of these conditions, what are we going to do with the wave to meet them? Now, first of all, you want to make sure that you hit level 2 before the enemy top laner hits level 2. This does not mean that you want to shove your wave for level 2, you just want to make sure that you're 1 or 2 autos ahead of the enemy top laner. That way you get level 2 with the wave in a relatively neutral state. It will be pushing a little bit towards the enemy top laner, but that is entirely okay. That is your goal. If you shove level 1 too hard, you're just going to scare the enemy top laner off of your level 2. You're not going to be able to get a trade off. It's going to crash too soon. You're going to completely blow your opportunity for a good dive where you can deny an entire wave and a half sometimes. If, on the other hand, you play it properly and you're only 1 or 2 autos ahead of the enemy top laner, they're going to be enticed by the CS. They're going to want to be able to get their level 2. Then you're going to be able to perform a very good trade on them. That will prep them for the dive later on. After your initial trade on the top laner level 2, they're probably not going to walk up for another trade. If they do, by all means take it, but they most likely won't. At this point, you want to slowly start auto-attacking the enemy minions. You just want to make sure that your wave is bigger than theirs and is starting a slow push. You don't want to hit the minions a lot, maybe 1 or 2 autos on each melee minion, and that's it. Now, the next wave that crashes is the important wave. This is the cannon wave, and this is the wave that you want to fast push. You want as many of your minions to survive this wave as possible. That way you have as big as a wave crashing into the enemy tower as you can have, which will give you the most amount of time to perform your dive. If you got a good level 2 trade, then you should have them low enough under the tower where you can dive them, flash away from the tower if you have to, or flash onto the enemy champion if you have to. Remember, this is a turning point in the lane, and flash should be used if it's necessary. Now, the reason why this is such a dominant lane, and why it's called a dominant lane, is because if you're able to pull this dive off, the enemy top laner is going to miss a wave worth of EXP while they are dead and respawning. They're going to lose their teleport because they have to teleport back to the wave. They're going to be down a full kill worth of gold and EXP, sometimes even first blood gold. And on top of that, you are not going to be losing your TP. You get to walk back to a favorable lane state without blowing TP, which means if something goes wrong, you still have your bailout card. Now, of course, this final example is the end goal in every single one of your games, but unfortunately not every champion is diveable at level 3. For example, Kled just can't really be dove at level 3, and that's okay. That is why we went over the earlier examples in this video to know what you should do if you do draft a lane that doesn't win. Now, of course, the first 5 minutes of the game do not dictate the entire game. Sometimes tragedies can happen, and sometimes miracles happen. But if you are able to master the first 5 minutes of the game using these strategies, you're going to be seeing a whole lot more success in the rest of your lane phase. You can use these to get yourself a lead or keep yourself even in a frustrating lane. If you're able to do these things, then you should be seeing a lot more success in your solo queue games when you are playing top lane. Remember that above all things, top lane revolves around minions, and if you can control the minions, you control the lane. Try not to get too caught up in fighting to the point where you lose control of the minions or you stop focusing on them, because that's typically when things go bad. By having the discipline to always focus on the minions first, you're going to be able to win even the hardest of lanes. In these first 5 minutes, you need to make sure that you're focusing, not getting baited into bad trades that will make you lose control of the wave, because this is going to put you at a major detriment. Play slow, play disciplined. There are only a few plays that you need to make in the first few minutes, and if you make those properly, then you're going to be able to win pretty much any lane. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like and subscribe. We're posting a lot more content now that I'm back, so if that's something you appreciate, let us know. If you haven't already, of course, go check out our website, GameLeap.com. I've got a few exclusive guides over there, and I'm going to be making some more exclusive stuff for the website. So if that is something that interests you, then make sure to click the link in the description below and check us out. This was a topic that I wanted to cover for a very long time because it is one of my specialties in the top lane. I've always been obsessed with minion control and perfecting it. I wanted to share this with you guys so you could get a glimpse into my mind and how I control early games. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'm Panther, I hope you learned something valuable, and I will see you in the next one.